Welcome back to the Future Water podcast. I'm Paul Horton, CEO of Future Water, and I'm joined by Horizon Water Infrastructure. In this episode, we focus on smart metering. What is it? Why does it matter? And how can it help us tackle water scarcity? We'll also discuss customer engagement. Are we communicating effectively? And how can the data drive real change? Okay, let's dive in.
The sector and the 5-year investment plan typically means companies go out and buy. They buy something. That something could be services, it could be equipment, it could be a whole range of things. So then typically, does it make sense in what we're talking about in the universal metering world to buy the product? Is it, if the regulator says you can't quite have as much money as you want, does that mean the water companies can't buy as many meters as they want? Does it impact on the universal metering program? Does it impact on 50 by 50 because you mentioned the adaptive pathways? So if we're looking at innovation in this space, what does that mean?
I think it's more than a pound, shilling and pence conversation. I think to me the question I always try and answer is, what's the best thing for a water company's customers around the smart meter rollout? So how can I get the smart meter rollout right as a water company to give my customers the very best outcomes? How you approach paying for that is, I always think in Venn diagrams, it's one of the circles, but it's not the biggest and the most important thing. So I think you can take different ways of owning and purchasing assets, or not, as the case may be, and you can pretty much come back to the same position in terms of monthly and annual impact on your organisation from a financial perspective. I think to me, it's how are any organisation is viewing a smart rollout. So I think to me, it's about, firstly, how long are you looking for? There are different approaches that I've seen in the water sector. Some water companies looking at a 5 and 8 year smart meter rollout and contracting on that basis, and some looking for 20 years. Clearly, if you're contracting and building a program of an 8-year period, there is a working assumption that you have to do it again and replace your meters in 8 years' time, and that links directly to meter warranty. So that's fact. So you're ultimately doubling the cost of your smart meter rollout because we're not looking at the right time horizon. So I think time horizon is critical, and that links back to doing the right thing for the customer. Get it right and do it once, and that's what we should be focusing on. So that's the 20-year piece. Then I think there are the building blocks that allow you to have a smart program that works as well on day 365 of year 19 as it does on day 1 of year 1. So that's really about how are we getting the data from a meter to our systems, which is really critical in terms of network provision. Will that organisation exist in 20 years' time? Will the performance of that technology alter over that period of time? What levels of innovation could come in that allows us to switch different levels of technology? So that there's a piece there, and there are lots of bits of the Venn diagram, but I think the other one that's worth shouting out now is, how long will the battery last in my meter? And that's critical because different technologies come with different meter warranties, which can last 8 to 15 years. So length of program, the building blocks of that program to make it work effectively, and then you can think about how do I pay for that, and how do I fund it, and how do I own the assets to make it effective, which might be the question you asked me, but maybe we can come on to that later.
So it's not just about the meters. It's about, if we look at it from the 2050 viewpoint, if we're going to be halving leakage, we need to know what's gone into supply. Metering helps us spot what leaks that we may not see ordinarily. So what we're talking about is a 25-year program. And what's the best thing to do for that 25-year program that takes the public with us, everybody with us as a whole sector?
Yeah, I think, and again, there are building blocks. So to bring the public with us, it's got to work, and it's got to work from day one, and that's super important and challenging. That's not an easy gig to get right. And then there's a piece of, how do we use the information from a smart meter and from our smart structure to drive towards the outcomes that we're looking for, which are lots of the engagement pieces we've spoken about before. And it's an interesting conversation because a lot of people I talk to, it's a sequential piece. So we'll get our program stood up, we'll get it working effectively, and then we'll think about how we do the second piece. And I guess my challenge is what's stopping us doing this concurrently, because you only have certain touch points with the market, and whether that's developers, house owners, business owners, when you can spike interest and you can get people to do it. And I guess one of the key areas is around when you're getting meters installed, is to start having that conversation about why you're doing it, why are we having smart meters put around the network, what's the importance of it to that individual. So we know human beings generally have got three drivers, which are money, the community they live in, and the environment. And community, I include family in that. So smart meters there ultimately is because we're running out of water, and if we don't do something about it, there are negative consequences to individual, family, community. Smart meters, if you're efficient with your usage, can help you financially. And then clearly there's the world that we live in and the impact unless we change our behaviours. So we're putting them in. This is why we're doing it. This is the benefit positive to you if you use the information and do it effectively. So I think that's really important. And there's a missed opportunity if we don't use that interaction when it's happening to start positioning this with the customers. And I think it links back to a point that Tanya made before, which is on the impact on CMEX. So there'll be people sitting, listening to this going, well, if we talk to our customers, that has a negative impact on CMEX, and therefore we don't want to do it. And I think that links back to sort of the transformation change conversation we're having at the top of this, which is every interaction with the customer negative, or is it how we're having those conversations and what we're saying having a negative impact on our customers? But we can't shy away from the conversations because it's got to happen at some point, whether it's tomorrow when we're putting smart meters in the ground or in 10 years' time when we want to start engaging customers. My challenge is, why wouldn't you, or why wouldn't we want to start having that conversation with customers for awareness?
And I think that when you think about how important it is to get that data right, if you're having those conversations with customers, you need to make sure that they've got visibility of their own data, and the data's there to back it up. And if we're only achieving low levels of connectivity, low levels of data completeness, then we can't have those conversations with customers, and ultimately we're letting down customers. And if we're only achieving that for 80% of our customer base, then that 20% that are missing out are not getting the same service as everyone else. So if we're going to start engaging customers and educating them on smart and helping them to decrease their usage and manage their usage and manage their bills, we need to make sure that we are setting our smart systems up to deliver all of the data from day one.
And again, if you look at the energy sectors, we talked about, smart meters aren't new, and they're not new to the UK, and they've been rolled out in energy for a long time. And it doesn't take a lot of Googling to find negative stories about smart meters in energy. And you go on to chat rooms about smart meters not working effectively, data being incorrect or just not getting what you want from them. And I think it evidences that the organisations that get it right and do get these programs working effectively stand out from the crowd. That it's a differentiator, and I know obviously the water sector is not competitive, but surely we'd all want to get a program that's working effectively, that builds trust with our customers, which they're engaged in and they understand the reasons why. But ultimately, to deliver the benefits of a smart rollout program, it requires behavioural change. Whether that's from a business owner, a home mover, or a housing developer, it requires behavioural change.
Does Energy see the rollout as part of what Tanya hinted at, more of a systems approach? So it's not just about the meter, it's not just about the measurement, not just about the data that emerges from there, but how that is then used in the wider context of either talking to the customers, whoever that customer is, getting information that tells you a lot more about how, in the case of energy, the energy system works and operates. And is that where water needs to get to? So it's not just information and data, it's how that's then used. What it tells you about things you may not have been asking a question about in the first place.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a uniform answer to that. So there are lots of energy companies, and I think they've all had a different view on why they should put smart meters in and what the strategy is around them. Clearly it's mandated, so it's got to happen. And if you don't, you get penalised by the regulator, so it's driven. So I might get challenged for saying this out loud, but some energy companies are getting smart meters in because they've got to. And then I think there are others that see that as a really important part of their strategy on how they communicate with customers, differentiate themselves from any other energy suppliers, introduce new propositions and solutions. I used to run residential sales at E.ON, and it's very hard actually as a utility provider to differentiate your solution. I used to have 1,000 people knocking on doors trying to sell gas and electric to people, and I used to go out with them, and a lot of people say, look, it's blue sparkly stuff that comes out of a plug, doesn't matter if I get it from you or somebody else, what's the difference? And as a utility, it's really difficult to do that, to sell the benefits of what you're doing. And I think smart meters enable you to do that. But it's where on strategic roadmap of an organisation does smart meters sit, and how important is it seen as more than just measuring consumption? There are huge benefits that you can get from smart metering that can transform your relationship with your customer, the performance of your organisation, and the delivery of the targets that we need. But it's got to be seen as that pivotal part in an organisation strategy for that to be realised. And again, my fear is with some businesses, we've got to do it, so let's whack them in, and we'll think about what we do with them once they're in. But we've got to put them in because they're, haven't been mandated, but they're in our targets, and we've got to deliver it or we'll get penalised.
I think that's probably a nice segue into where your approach is as Horizon. So you're a transformation partner with Future Water Association. What's Horizon bringing from energy into water? What's the value proposition?
Horizon's value proposition, Horizon Water Infrastructure value proposition, isn't just about what we bring from energy into water. I established this business in my head around 2 years ago, and we started building it around 14 months ago. And we certainly weren't arrogant or naive enough to think that we had all the answers from energy and then we could just come and sell that to the water sector. The water sector's unique. It's got its own unique challenges, and there's a completely different ecosystem that needs to be navigated. So the first thing that I looked for were experts in the sector who could really support us build out our value proposition to understand the needs of the sector. And, been really lucky to be working with experts like Tanya, Simon Bryant, who's our financial director, who's got background from Yorkshire Water and Morrison Water Services, Richard Channell, who's joined us, who's obviously got a lot of experience from Thames and working for Arqiva. So it's bringing that sector expertise together to really understand the challenges the sector's faced with, identifying the problem statement, and then how we can help fix that as a business. So that was the approach, I guess, we brought to how do we develop our organisation. And then it's more sprinkling the learnings we've got from energy through water expertise rather than the other way around. And I think it's really important to get that right, that we're not an energy business who thinks they can just pivot into water. We're a water business built with water expertise that has taken some of the learnings from energy. And then ultimately, to answer your question, which I'm taking a while to get to do, our solution is very simple. We are experts in rolling out smart meters, and we are experts in how to do that effectively and efficiently, and to ensure that there's an enduring program that delivers the long-term outcomes, which is leakage reduction and per capita consumption reduction over 20 years. So we support water organisations in delivering their strategy to deliver outcomes. We have the technical and sector expertise to ensure that the programme for delivering that is best in class, and then we have the expertise to manage that. So we're a fully outsourced solution for any water company's smart metering programme that I believe is best in class.
And that providing infrastructure and or data, or both?
I'm like a waiter, and I think that our business is like a waiter. We talk to our customers, we understand what their needs are and their strategy, and we develop our solution around their specific needs. It's not a cookie cutter. Smart meter programs aren't cookie cutter. there are so many facets to what's right for an individual water company, and it needs to link into their strategy. So ultimately, our job in the short term is to deliver data consistently to a water company. Our longer term objective is to support water companies and actually using that data and harnessing the power from that. So that's ultimately what we do.
Yeah, so I think it's that kind of bespoke offering for every water company. So our role is to really go out and curate the best in class for every part of that smart metering journey. So that's going to be the procurement of the meters themselves. It's going to be making sure it's the right technology, and the comms network choices. So it's not one size fits all in terms of comms choices. You need to take into account population density, the topography of the area, what the different challenges are. So we will always look to secure the right solution for each individual customer, bringing in installer capabilities and that sort of head-end system meter data management part where you get the value from the data. So all of the data analytics, the continuous flow alarms, the customer engagement apps, all of that kind of end-to-end service is bundled up, but it is curated individually and it's bespoke for each individual water company.
And that makes you different to any other provider of that service, that offering?
I guess I'm never one to throw stones at competitors, because actually I see having more people doing what we're doing as a benefit, because it really helps sell the broader solution. I think what differentiates us and makes us experts is actually having rolled out smart meters lots of times before. Our business was built on funding smart meters in the energy sector, but we took a very hands-on approach. So we're not a financier or a bank that just sits there writing checks to pay for stuff. We've actively supported over 12 energy companies pull together, design, get over the kinks of a smart meter program. So we have that active learning of doing this multiple times before. And I think the other thing that differentiates us is the people. And I think I said it before, when I was building Horizon Water Infrastructure, the key thing for me was to identify the best people in the water sector who could build our proposition and solution, which we've done. And then finally, I guess it's being, I hate the word agnostic, but I'll just have to use it because I can't think of a better one. We're not tied to any solution provider. We're completely transparent and honest on the pros and cons of every solution. And it goes back to the question you asked me, Paul, around what do you do that's different and what's the solution for water companies. And there is a smorgasbord of optionality out there. And if you're new to smart metering, how do you go through a process of actually selecting what's best for my company and my customer over 20 years? How do I do that? Which is really challenging. We've been contracting with, I don't call them supply chain, I call them strategic partners, because we do this together. We've been doing that for a long time, and it's to make sure that there are no gaps or holes in that, and it's clear on where accountability sits. Stuff does go wrong, that's life. So having that ability to pull that together and ultimately to build a team. I think the language that's used frequently is a prime contractor and supply chain. We don't use that language. Horizon is there to pull together a group of like-minded organisations who are really passionate and battling to get the best outcome for water companies and their customers, and it's creating that culture that we work in. And with that, then you get success rather than contracts and pricing and managing through that. So I think the cultural bit's really important.
And one of the unique things that Horizon Water Infrastructure offer, above and beyond just being a prime contractor, is that financing option.
Yeah, for sure. And it's new to the sector, isn't it? So the water sector has funded or paid for assets in a very systematic way for a long period of time. I guess it links back to
a regulation way.
Way. To the transformation piece that you mentioned previously. And ultimately, what we can do is take the total cost of a smart program and own all the assets, manage all of the strategic partners, and pull that together and present water companies with a price per data feed, which is a total funded, outsourced solution, which it's not unique because we've been doing it in energy for 15 years. But I think, again, it links back to the very start of the conversation around transformation, doesn't it? And sometimes it's about taking things from other sectors that have worked and are effective and adopting those into a new sector. And I guess the key benefit to the end customer in this is that the cost is spread over 20 years. So, if you're a customer, you're not having the lump hit your bill from a 5-year period. So that is supportive. Certainty on performance of your smart meter program. There are lots of different opinions on what is the right way to do a smart meter program. And I guess it's how do you as a water company validate the strength or quality of that opinion? And it's really difficult if it's a new world to you on how you do that.
Do you need a 20-year time horizon for this to work? Or is the time horizon dependent on what's put out to market?
You don't need anything. I think it's any asset can be funded over any period of time. It's ultimately how do we collectively as a sector minimise the impact on the customer for the introduction of this technology. And clearly, if you're amortising something over 20 years rather than 8, the cost impact is a lot lower. And also you don't have the repeat cost of doing it 2 or 3 times if you're doing an 8-year programme.
Is it genuinely lower? Because if you take out a loan and pay it back in 5 years, you end up paying less back in total than if you did that over 20 years. Or is it lower because you're not having to remove and put the meters back in?
I look at total programme cost. What is the total cost to my organisation over 20 years of running a smart meter programme? And there are so many bits that you can build into that. So from that perspective, sure, it's cheaper because if you're installing meters and programmes that are going to only last for 8 years, you've got to do the whole thing again. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, so just the reason that we look at this 15 or 20 year time horizon, ultimately the asset life of a smart meter is 15 years. So we need to be maximising the life of that meter, and that means that you need to manage the risks around the network availability, whether that network is still going to be there in 15 years. You need to make sure that your batteries are going to last, that you're giving the meter itself, you're putting it in the right conditions to perform for that full 15 years. So when we talk about a 20-year time frame, we're talking about a 5-year installation program. That last meter that goes in on at the end of that 5th year then has a 15-year life. So we're talking about a 20-year program in total.
Yeah, and I guess how do you explore the opportunity cost or the risk associated with smart programs? So if you're doing a total program analysis, how do you identify the risk of program failure and the cost to your business? Because it's not just about replacing meters, is it? It's about reputational risk, lack of trust with your customers, not delivering your off-watt targets on leakage and reduction, and so much more. So there's a total cost that needs to be considered in your decision-making process, which, again, finance is part of. I've not yet seen that approach to smart metering. I've seen different approaches, and some have been around how can we get the very cheapest solution that costs us the least per year. But I guess there's the risk that's associated with that, which is, does the solution that you've selected evidence that it can consistently deliver the data that you need, not just over 15, 20 years, over the next 12 months to allow you to be successful, would be question one. Does your solution enable the meters to last for 15 years? Because different technologies have meters with different warranties, which will only last for 6 to 8 years. So it's finite. It's not that. Again, that's fact. So I guess then there's the bit of who is coordinating and pulling all this together. It is a smorgasbord of complexity, and even if you've got the right component parts there, putting it together into a coherent, sensible program that works effectively, that's contracted effectively, and then is managed effectively is incredibly challenging. So that's lots of areas that I think needs broader consideration.
Yeah, when you speak about risk, my background is working for water companies. So when I put my water company hat back on, I think about The risks being in financing, securing the funding for this, and knowing that you're working in these 5-year cycles, so you don't know what you're going to get in the next AMP. There's risk around the purchasing of the assets themselves. Where am I in the queue? If everybody chooses the same meter manufacturer as AMP, are we in trouble? Can they meet the supply demand? And then the due diligence around those meters as well. I'm no expert in meters, and it's unfair to expect water companies to be experts in every element of smart metering. A big one for risk is the vendor lock-in. So when you procure in traditional means, you are committing yourself to that vendor, and ultimately, even if you're only committing for 5 years, once you've chosen your technology, the chances of you switching in another 5 years are very slim. So you have that vendor lock-in, and that's really dangerous, and something that we can mitigate through the funded solution that Horizon offer. Supply chain shortages, and that's installation capacity as well as meters, and ultimately competing priorities in water companies. So in my opinion is let experts be experts. Let the water companies, go out there and treat the water, produce the water, put it into the network and manage that. Let them do what they're good at and stick to BAU, and ultimately let smart metering experts come in and be experts and help inform those decisions. So for me, this whole sort of bundled package is about transferring risk from the water company to someone else who can manage it, who is an expert.
And in terms of that risk, which obviously links into procurement, does it create a more agile process?
It does. I think the approach that we have, it fosters innovation. The traditional CapEx procurement, AMP cycles tie you into something, but with our solution, there's flexibility in the offering. So as smart metering progresses, everybody's going to go big for smart metering in this AMP. There are going to be innovations. There's going to be R&D investment, and things are going to change. The horizon will look very different in the next 2 or 3 years. And the benefit of our solution is that we, as the prime contractor, could change technologies. We could change meter manufacturers. We could change installers. We could change processes. As long as we deliver what we say we're going to deliver, we have the flexibility to shift that supply chain around and really foster innovation. And one of our core values is to drive that innovation. Ultimately, we want to work with all of our supply chain partners, and we want to help bring new solutions to the table. We want to help increase battery life. We want to increase warranty periods. We want to see innovation in this sector really, really turbocharged, and that's something that we're driving as an organisation to make sure we can offer our clients the best possible solution across that 15-year lifespan.
Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode. Smart metering is more than just technology. It's about better data, better decisions, and engaging customers in new ways. But how do we make sure we roll it out properly? In our final episode, we'll look at the road ahead, we'll look at innovation, we'll look at collaboration, and what needs to happen for the UK to meet its water targets. Stay tuned.